It's on the time with tutorial, fantastic tutorial. And in today's tutorial, it happens to be another class on the course ENG114. And in today's tutorial, we'll be talking about, all right, it's a continuation on African literature, all right. But today it's going to be a little bit different from what we are saying, even though it's the same pedestrian. It's just more like a continuation of what we have been discussing in our retrospective classes. With this being said, let's go straight into it. Okay, so we have ENG114. Okay, courses ENG114, and according to the thumbnail, we're taking the Nigerian nationalist literature. Now, if this happens to be the Department of Political Science, where we say the word nationalist, all right, it is easy to relate with, all right, because we've taken a lot of classes on that term, nationalist. But in a nutshell, when we talk about nationalists now, we are simply talking about the elite or certain individuals in a country coming together to nationalize, coming together to move, all right, their country at nationalization to enhance or to achieve what you call nationalization of their country from external authorities. Okay, so that's just nationalization in a nutshell. So now, that individual or the group of individuals who see to that nationalization you will refer to as a nationalist. Okay, so now, speaking of Nigerian nationalist literature, what are we now saying in essence? We are simply talking about how Nigerian nationalists and African nationalists at large used literature, all right, as a tool of nationalization, all right. Literature in the sense of putting words together, words that will encourage, make Africans see or Nigerians see why we need to unite as a nation, all right, using of the written words and papers and publications just to achieve the nationalization of Nigeria. So we're going to be taking, according to our material, we're going to be considering some of these instances, some of this literary work very quickly. Okay, so we have that as that. Now, to start with, okay, just a moment, trying to adjust my material here. Now, early Nigerian poetry in English was anti-colonization. All right, remember what I said? Getting freedom. All right, talking about nationalist movement, getting freedom from whatsoever, all right, authority or power that might have denied certain rights and freedom. All right, so like what we are doing today, it says here that the early Nigerian poetry, please note, it says early Nigerian poetry. Okay, early Nigerian poetry in English. Right, that means we had other Nigerian poetry that were, all right, not written in English, but the early Nigerian poetry written in English was an anti-colonial, all right, mobilizational poetry. Mobilizational poetry. Okay. Now, just like I explained earlier, I said that the poetry, all right, literature, when it comes to nationalism, all right, or let's say literature during early Nigerian poetry was particularly, all right, was particularly written to encourage Nigerians, all right, to mobilize, to encourage, to stir, to ginger, all right, to mobilize them to see reasons why we need to come together as a nation and, all right, kick out any other authority or power that is not bringing us, all right, or identifying us as a nation. So this is what it means in a nutshell. Now, like I usually say, everything we feature on this channel is basically uh is purely educational. We don't violence, we don't cast stone, all right, or encourage anything negative, all right. Purely educational, and this is what we do on this channel. All right. So now, as we are being told that these um, nationalist movement uses poetry for the sake or for the purpose of mobilizing, all right, mobilization of Nigerians towards nationalism. All right, so we want to talk about certain individuals and how they achieve this and the strategies they use to see that they achieve their goals and objectives, which is nationalism. Now, it says here, it was one of the weapons used by nationalists. Okay, one of the weapons used by nationalists to fight. All right, one of the weapons used by nationalists to protest. All right, I don't use that word fight. All right, one of the words used by the nationalists to protest. Okay, the British colonial administration in Nigeria. All right, it was used to protest. All right, so we have poetry used to protest. Protest the what? It was used to protest. Are we together? It was used to protest the British colonial administration. The British, all right, it was used to protest. I think I lost my marker there, so I just have to change this one. Colonial administration. Okay, because basically that was what it was used. It was used to protest this colonial administration by the British. Okay, and sensitize the people to the injustice of colonization. It made the people aware. All right, poetry was used to make the people aware of why they should, all right, what they should rally for nationalism. All right. So basically, this is what poetry was used for in the Nigerian nationalist literature. All right. So when you hear Nigerian nationalist literature, you already know what we are talking about. It was an era, it was a time whereby nationalists uses poetry. You can refer to it as pen up, let's pen power. All right. They can't fight them physically. All right. So elites, don't forget we said something about individuals that were exposed, all right, to these colonizers, all right, happen to learn English, having English as their alpha. This exposed them to writing, all right. This exposed them, broadened their horizon, and began to write, express themselves, all right, through poetry. And this work of art was also useful, all right, was basically very, very useful when Nigerians began to work towards nationalism. Okay, so we have that as that. Now let's proceed. Now it says here, So there are some names that we have here that made certain effort, and their effort were actually recognized and can't be unnoticed. All right, we have the likes of um, Michel de Anand and Bendegar Blay, all of Ghana. We also have the Christian George of Sierra Leone, and we have the Roland of Liberia, and among others. So among others, these are very few ones. So we have, let's take these names. We have the likes of Michel. Now let's just take this. Let's take Benny Bengo. Benny Bengo. Benny Bengo. All right. Benny Bengo Blay. All right. So this is Ghana. We have as well, we have Crispin. All right. Crispin George. Crispin George. This is Syria. All right. Syria. Let's change this. Syria Leone. Syria Leone. Okay. And we also have Roland Tombikai. Roland Tom. All right. Tombikai of Liberia. Please, as you join the stream, do well to use the comment section. Let's know where you are streaming from. All right. Do well to say hi, hello, good afternoon. And if you have to smash the like button, ensure you do that right away. All right. So now let's take a step further. Now, I believe by now we understand what it means by the nationalist, all right, Nigerian nationalist literature. Nigerian nationalist literature. I believe we have an understanding. Miss Blessing, good to have you on board. I never knew you were even online all this while. Blessing, hope you are taking down your notes. You have not been getting your notes in the private class. So now, we made mention of some names, some from Ghana, some from Sierra Leone, some from Liberia, and in Nigeria, in our own Nigeria here, we have the likes of Nnamdi Azikiwe, the likes of Dennis Osadebe. All right, we have Dennis Osadebe. Okay, Osadebe. That's Nigeria. We also have Nnamdi. All right, Nnamdi, not Nnamdi, I beg your pardon. Nnamdi. All right, Nnamdi Azikwe, Nigeria as well. So we have that stuff. I'm going to raise the ball so we can take more points. Like I usually say, it's always a good thing for us to start um, our classes very early. I think for this particular department, we started our classes very late. I think there are still some courses we are yet to cover, but hopefully I'm of the opinion that even though we are able to cover the classes, such courses, the exam keynote will be sent. All right, the exam keynote will be sent for such, all right, for such courses. So there's nothing we need to panic about. Now let's take a step further. It says here, Okay, so I think that's all on the Nigerian nationalist literature. So now, like I said, apart from this, the use of literature towards nationalism, all right, there are other things that these nationalists as well use. Speaking about the building of elites, all right, educating the masses, and the use of the newspaper, the mass media as well. So very quickly, all right, let's touch on some points here. It says here, in the 1930s, black intellectuals from French colonies, all right, living in Paris, initiated a literary movement called negritude. All right, negritude. Okay, now negritude, all right, like we are being told, is a an initiated word, all right, an initiated word by French colony now by black intellectuals, all right, introduced by black intellectuals living in, all right, black intellectuals living in Paris, all right. So definitely Paris is French, all right. France, Paris is in France, and in France you speak French, all right. That is their L1, living in Paris. Okay. Now, negritude emerged out of a sudden grasp. Pay attention to this, please. Negritude emerged out of a sudden grasp of what we refer to as racial identity and of cultural values, all right, and awareness of the wide discrepancies. What are we saying here? Now, like I said earlier, what we do on the channel is purely educational, all right, purely educational. Now, what I'm trying to say is that this word, all right, or this movement produced by some intellectuals, some black intellectuals living in Paris. Now they noticed that certain things were not done properly. All right. Seem as if blacks were not given equal access, equal rights to things. All right. And they felt like it is not supposed to be so. Why the separation? Why the segregation? Now, this is it. It says here that there's a promise called the French system of assimilation. Now, the French system of assimilation is actually a policy, all right? And this policy, just a moment. Now, this policy, as we all know, like we have been discussing, was implemented in France by its African colonies. Now, that is the French system assimilation. French system assimilation. It's a policy. And this policy was implemented by France in its African colonies. All right. So what are we saying that France having certain colonies which are occupied by Africans, all right. So it's more like a promise to these colonies that they will be integrated, all right, that these colonies will be a local population into French culture. Now, there's going to be an integration, all right, by this local population into French culture, by encouraging them to adopt French language, all right. So now, African colonies of France, all right. Yeah. Now, this policy is to integrate these locals into French culture. When we say integrate, you simply mean that try and blend in, all right. Blend means certain stuff with other stuff. All right, integrate, that the whole process will be smooth. Now we have integrate this local integrate African colonies. Now this local population will be integrated into French culture. Integrate um, African colonies into what we call French culture. So with these, they become they'll adopt everything that has to do with France, all right, and the French culture. And with this, they will have equal rights, all right. They will have equal access to things, just like the indigents or the citizens. Maybe we should put it that way, all right. By encouraging them to adopt French language, customs, laws, and values, essentially transforming them into what? French citizens. All right, so the aim is to transform them into what? French citizens. That's the aim, to transform French citizens. All right. Now, though in practice, there's what we seem to call discrimination. Now, this policy aims to effectively erase this indigenous culture and identities in favor of a French one. Now, look at what we are saying here. These African colonies, they are not French, all right, but Africans. But this FAS, all right, that is the French system of assimilation. The purpose is to convert them into French citizens. And with this, they become, if they become citizens, they enjoy everything a French citizen is supposed to enjoy. But in the process of converting them, all right, certain things began to unfold, which is the likes of discrimination and among others. All right, and this led to certain things that were unexpected. Okay, now we have, it says negritude writers who wrote poetry in French, in which they presented African traditions and cultures as antithetical but equal to European culture. All right. So now, like we are being told here, now the thing is that while all these things were happening, all right, we had literatures written in French as well to promote African cultures, even though what they painted African culture to be is not what it really, all right, portrays. Is not what it really portrays. Now, negative writers, like I said, they wrote their poetry and they painted African culture as better off than any other person might have painted, all right, it. So now we have that as that. Now we also have many Nigerian nationalists, like the likes of Nnamdi Azikwe, all right, Chief Dennis as well, Chief Enaoru, among others, were product of Western education, and they recognize the power of literature. They recognize the power of literature. They recognize the power of literature, all right, and they used it to the advantage of nationalist movement. Okay, they used it to the advantage of nationalist movement. So we have that as that. Now I think we've been some extent here, and um, we started actually a bit late, so we can't go far much. We can't take much because we have actually used up our time, and hopefully in our next class we'll talk about some other things um, as we call it right here for today. So in our next class, we'll take it up from the Mbari Coup, all right, Mbari Club, all right, which happens to be one of the products of this educated elite, all right, we are referring to as nationalists. So thank you very much. I have to be able to bring something into this class. All right, but just before we call it wrap, I'd like to give us an assignment very quickly. So we have assignment. All right, in your own word, what do you understand by the Nigerian by Nigerian nationalist um, literature? Thank you very much, everyone. You have a wonderful evening. I look forward to seeing you subscribe to us. Bye.